The sunlight poured across the kitchen tiles like nothing had changed. Except everything had. Have you ever built a life so steady, so safe, that you didn't notice how lonely it had become? If that hits home, hit the like button. And if you've been through something similar, stick around and drop a comment. You're not alone in this. For a long time, it was just me and my son Chase. I used to tell people we survived each other. That's only half the truth. We saved each other too. His dad left when Chase was barely walking. And after that, it was one long stretch of working double shifts, late-night cereal dinners, and trying to smile when all I wanted to do was cry into a laundry basket full of bills. Chase grew up fast. Too fast, probably. He learned to read my face before he ever really knew how to read books. He'd hand me tissues when I thought I was hiding my tears. He'd say things like, "We're good, right?" as if he needed to take care of me. And maybe he did. That's the part that still gets me. By the time he finished college and moved back in, just for a while, he said, I told myself we were finally okay. The house was quiet, stable. He helped with groceries, mowed the lawn without asking. We'd watch old movies, laugh over takeout, just exist in the same space without needing to say much. It was simple, peaceful, familiar. And then one day, I realized I was leaning on him in a way I should. There's this old hot tub in the backyard, one of those half-working things that came with the house. For years, it just sat there, a mossy joke we'd ignore. But last summer, Chase got it working again, like some kind of personal mission. He scrubbed it out, rewired the pump, even replaced the broken cover. I remember watching him work on it through the kitchen window, sun hitting his shoulders, sweat dripping down his neck, and I thought, not for the first time, how grown he looked. One night, after a long week, he came into the living room and said, "Mom, you gotta try it out. It's actually nice now. Come on, just 10 minutes. I hesitated. Now? It's almost 10. He raised an eyebrow. You literally told me you needed to soak your back. I laughed. I meant in the tub, not outside. Same thing. He grinned. Come on, I'll bring wine. 10 minutes later, we were out there. The steam curled up into the night, and the backyard buzzed with cricket. It was quiet in that perfect kind of way. No distractions, no phone, just the stars above us and the water humming around our shoulders. We talked about nothing for a while. Work stuff, weird neighbors, whether it would ever rain again. I joked about how he used to hate baths when he was little. He told me I snored during movies, the usual rhythm. And then came the silence. Not a bad silence. Just still, heavy, like something in the air had shifted and neither of us wanted to say it out loud. I took a sip of wine and leaned back. My head rested on the edge of the tub, and I closed my eyes. I felt calm, warm, safe, maybe a little too safe. Then I moved slightly, just a lazy repositioning, and my leg brushed his under the water. It was nothing, a passing moment, but I pulled back like I'd touched something electric. Sorry, I muttered. He didn't say anything, just gave this little half laugh like he wasn't sure what the joke was either. I looked over at him. His face was unreadable, eyes fixed on the dark yard ahead. It hit me then, not what I'd done, but what I'd felt. That little twinge in my chest. Not attraction, not that, but a kind of longing, for closeness, for comfort, for someone who knew me better than anyone else. And that's when it hit me hard. I hadn't touched anyone, really touched anyone, in almost 3 years. Not out of pride, just Chase had taken up all the emotional space in my world, not because he asked to, because I let it happen. I needed someone, and he was always there. So when I brushed his leg, and that pulse of heat hit me, it wasn't about him, it was about how starved I'd become for connection, for someone to see me, for anyone to hold the weight with me for a little while. I hated that feeling, because it meant I wasn't as okay as I'd been pretending to be. Chase broke the silence first. You've been different lately, he said quietly. How so? I asked, playing dumb. He shrugged. Happier, I think. Or lighter. It's good. Just new. I looked away. My stomach tightened, because I knew exactly what he was noticing. Daniel, the man I met at work. The one with the soft voice and the tired eye. The one who made me laugh during staff meetings and stayed late to help me organize storage closets. The one who, 3 months ago, told me he was married but unhappy, and I told him I understood and meant it more than I should have. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, maybe I'm just trying to enjoy life more. Chase nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed on mine, longer than usual. I like seeing you happy, he said. Just, don't forget who you are, okay? That one stuck. Like he knew more than he let on. Like maybe he was trying to say, don't disappear on me. And all I could do was smile and nod, pretending I hadn't already started. If you've ever felt like your peace was starting to feel more like a cage, tell me in the comments. I want to know how you got out. Or if you're still in. The next few days were normal. You know, that kind of normal, where nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels off. I still cooked dinner. Chase still brought in the mail. We still watched our ridiculous detective shows like nothing had shifted. But something, that moment in the hot tub, didn't leave me. It clung to me. Quiet, sticky, like a half-dried label you can't peel off a jar. And worse, I found myself checking my phone more often, waiting for a message from Daniel, watching Chase out of the corner of my eye, wondering if he noticed, wondering what he knew but hadn't said. Because the truth is, secrets have a smell, maybe not a real one, but something in the air changes when you're carrying one. You speak softer, you laugh a little too late, you flinch at innocent questions. And he'd always been good at reading the weather. One evening, I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of soup, when he came in from a run, sweat across his brow, headphones dangling from his hand. He opened the fridge, then paused. Dinner smells great. Thanks, I said, forcing casual. He shut the door but didn't walk away, just leaned against the counter, eyes on me. You seeing someone? The ladle stopped mid-stir. What? I laughed. Where did that come from? He raised an eyebrow. You've been, I don't know, blushing at your phone, singing in the car. You even wore lipstick last Thursday. Can't a woman wear lipstick in her own house? I tried to joke but my voice cracked. God, it cracked. He didn't smile. I'm serious. I turned off the stove. Part of me wanted to lie. The other part, exhausted. I hadn't realized how tired I was from carrying it all. So I told the truth. Sort of. There's someone I talk to at work. We've gotten close. Chase nodded. Slow. Measured. He married. I froze. Silence answered before my mouth did. Chase inhaled sharply through his nose and looked away. I knew it. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't curse. That almost made it worse. I didn't plan for it to happen, I said quietly. No one ever does, he replied. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the knot in the wood grain. My heart thudded like I was the child, and he was the parent. I'm not asking you to understand, I said, just to know it's complicated. He stood across from me, arms folded. I do understand. That's what makes it so hard. That line wrecked me. Because he wasn't angry, he was hurt. Not by the affair itself, maybe, but by the fact that I'd kept something from him, that the person I'd always made space for, was suddenly being pushed out by someone he'd never even met. And what really broke me was realizing I'd made him the person I couldn't afford to disappoint. Later that night, I found a message from Daniel. Missed you today. Coffee break wasn't the same. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to vent, to let him hold the part of me that felt raw and stupid and ashamed. But I did. I turned the phone over and left it face down on the nightstand, because suddenly, it didn't feel like a secret anymore. It felt like a mess, one that was starting to stain the only relationship that had ever held me together. I used to think emotional affairs were easier, clean, no lies about where you were last night, no lipstick stains, or hotel rooms. But the truth, the heart doesn't know the difference, and neither do the people who love you until it's too late. What do you do when the person you love most sees through you and you don't like what they find? If you've ever lived in the space between what's right and what feels good, leave a comment. I'm listening. The next day started like any other. I poured my coffee, stared out the window at the fence. Chase still hadn't fixed, and told myself it wasn't that big a deal. He didn't yell. He didn't storm off. That had to count for something, right? I kept pretending everything was fine, right up until dinner. That's when he said it. You're not answering his texts anymore. I looked up from my plate. My fork paused mid-air. Excuse, you haven't picked up your phone all night, he said. Calm. Watching. You keep looking at it but you're not responding. So what's the plan, Mom? I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I didn't know what else to do. Since when do you monitor my message? I'm not, he said. I'm just not blind. There it was again. That tone, not angry, just disappointed. Chase, I started. You are my son, you are not my keeper. No, he said. But I've been the one sitting across from you at the dinner table every night. I've seen you lonely. I've seen you try to pretend you're okay, and I've watched you smile at your phone like you were finally breathing again. That shut me up. Because it was true, all of it. He pushed his chair back gently and stood. Look, I'm not judging you. I'm really not. But if you're looking for me to pretend this hasn't changed everything between us, I can't. He walked out, and for the first time in months, the house felt too big. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the house like a ghost, checking locked doors, straightening cushions, wiping counters that were already clean. I ended up in the kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, staring into the fridge I didn't actually want anything from. The light buzzed. The milk was almost. I stood there with the door open like that would fix something. Then I heard his voice behind me. You always do that when you're thinking too loud. I turned to see Chase in the doorway, arms crossed, leaning on the frame, like he used to as a teenager when he was trying to tell me he broke something, without actually saying it. I'm sorry, I said, not just for what I did, for how I dragged you into it. He walked in, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water. I get it, he said after a while. I really do. You're human. You wanted to feel wanted, but you didn't trust me enough to tell me. That's not fair, I said. I was trying to protect. Protect who? He cut in. Me? Or yourself? That hit deep. Because the truth was, I didn't tell him because I didn't want to see that look on his face, the one I was looking at right now. I didn't want to admit that I'd needed someone so badly. I forgot what kind of woman I'd promised myself I'd be, what kind of mother I'd promised him I'd stay. He set the glass down, leaned back against the counter, and looked at me like he was seeing someone he wasn't sure he recognized anymore. I think you need to figure out what you want, he said softly, before you lose more than just him. Then he walked past me, not angry, just tired. That kind of tired you feel when someone you trust disappoints you again. There's this moment, when you realize the damage is already done, when no amount of good intentions can unhurt someone, and that moment, it sits with you. It doesn't scream, it whispers, constantly. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand. I opened the message from Daniel. Can we talk tomorrow? I miss you. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but for once I didn't type back, not right away, because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't thinking about how he made me feel. I was thinking about the look on my son's face, the ache behind his eyes, how heavy it must have been for him to watch me unravel and not say anything until it was already too late. This was my line in the sand, almost. I hadn't crossed it yet, but I'd stepped right up to the edge, and now all I could see was the space between the woman I was and the one I swore I'd never become. Have you ever let something go too far, thinking you could fix it later, only to realize later came and I'd love to hear how you handled it, or how you're still trying to. It had been 2 days since that talk in the kitchen. The house wasn't quiet, it was silent. There's a difference. Quiet is peaceful. Silent, that's the space between people when something's broken, and no one knows how to fix it yet. Chase wasn't cold. Not exactly. He still made coffee, still said good morning, but it was the kind of good morning that landed flat, polite, careful, like someone walking through a room with broken glass, trying not to step wrong. And me, I was stuck in my head, rereading old messages from Daniel, deleting and undeleting them, writing replies I never sent, replaying every moment I let my loneliness speak louder than my value. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to end it. That Saturday morning, I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot, phone in hand, no music, no distractions, just me, finally facing what I'd been avoiding. I dialed Daniel. He answered on the second ring, his voice soft, like he'd just stepped outside. I've missed you, he said. I can't do this anymore. I replied. No warm-up, no apology, just truth. There was a pause. Is this about your son? It's about me, I said. I've been hiding from my life, Daniel, and dragging someone else into the shadows with me doesn't make it any better. I don't remember everything he said after that, mostly quiet disappointment. I think he knew it was coming. We ended the call peacefully. No fireworks, no drama, just a door I finally closed on something that should have never been opened in the first place. And you know what? I didn't cry. Later that evening, I found Chase in the living room, folding laundry, one of those domestic things that feels too normal for how heavy the air was. I stood in the doorway for a while watching him. I ended it, I finally said. He looked up. I told him it was over. I added, for good. Chase nodded once, then twice. Why? That question knocked the air out of me more than I expected. Because I didn't like who I was becoming, I said. Because I made a mess. And I don't want to live inside it. Because I realized the person I was hurting most was you. He didn't say anything, just kept folding socks with this tight, quiet concentration. I know I let you down, I said, but I want to be the woman who raised you right, not someone you have to protect from herself. That got him. He paused, looked at me. You're still her, he said, but you need to fight to stay. That night, we sat on the couch. Same place we'd watched movies for years. We didn't talk much, just sat there, side by side, not as mother and son trying to patch something up, but as two people who finally knew the whole truth, and didn't need to hide anymore. We were quiet, but not silent. There's a difference. It's easy to lose yourself quietly. You stop checking in with who you are, you compromise. One small step at a time, you laugh when you want to cry, you stay when you should leave. But the moment you decide to take your life back, not for someone else, but for you, that's the beginning of something honest, and maybe even something beautiful. I didn't burn down my life to find peace. I just stopped handing the matches to people who weren't willing to stay and help rebuild. If you've ever walked away from something that felt good but wasn't right, I want to hear your story. Drop a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if this hit you in the gut, because yeah, we talk about the real stuff here.